Hi everyone, welcome to another Writing Support Center workshop. My name is Giselle and today's workshop is titled Participating in Class Discussions. So this next slide might seem familiar to some of you who have taken this taken Writing Support Center workshops before. So if you've taken a Writing Support Center workshop before, you can skip this slide since it's more or less the same information that we usually give. But if you're new to the Writing Support Center, welcome. These are just a few tips that we like to share so that you can feel you can get the most out of the workshop. So in order to do that, make sure that you download and complete the accompanying activity worksheet. So wherever you access this workshop, whether it be on your instructor's Canvas shell or on the Writing Support Center Canvas shell, there should be a worksheet there. This worksheet is going to be the way that you get proof for workshop attendance. And it'll also help you internalize the things that you're learning as we go through this workshop. My second tip is to take your time. So one positive about a recorded workshop is you can pause and rewind as you need. So be sure to pause if there's something that you need to think about a little bit longer, and rewind if there's something that you need to hear again. Okay, so the workshop goals for this workshop are to learn the importance of participating in class discussion and to create a discussion plan that will help you more effectively participate in class. Now, most of the tips I'm going to provide here are for in-person class discussions. I will provide some tips for discussing over Zoom, but the main focus will be class discussion in person. If you want help with asynchronous class discussion, so if you would like to know how to respond to a discussion board on Canvas, there's actually another workshop that you can do instead titled Responding to Online Discussion Boards, and that'll help you more with Canvas discussion if that's what you're looking for. But if you're looking for in-class discussion tips, this is a workshop for you. Okay, so today we're going to start with an opening reflection. For this opening reflection, I want you to think about your current class participation. How often do you participate in class discussions? How comfortable are you participating in class discussion? If you are confident when participating, what are some things you do, your classmates do, or your instructor does to help you feel comfortable? And finally, if you are uncomfortable, what might help you feel more comfortable participating? So go ahead and pause here, respond to this on your worksheet, and once you're done, continue with the workshop. All right, so if you need more time, please keep pausing and continue once you're ready. I'm going to move on to the next slide. And the first thing I want to talk about is why participate. So why is it important to even participate in class discussion? So one thing is students are encouraged and expected to participate in class discussion, especially in English classes. It's kind of expected that you participate during class discussion. It's part of the learning process. Being able to think out loud, being able to think in community with your classmates, it's a way for you to internalize the information that you're learning. It helps you gain a greater understanding. So class discussion is really important for you as a learner. Providing your own opinion encourages you to critically think about the material being presented to you. So when you are thinking out loud, you're able to think deeper about what you're learning about. It's also going to help clarify any questions you or your classmates might have. Sometimes students who are shyer to participate might not be asking those questions that they have. So you asking a question is giving information to someone who might be too shy to ask it. So also think about that. It'll help you overall deepen your understanding of what you're learning, and it'll be more meaningful at the end of the day. So participation in class discussion is part of the learning process and something that you should try to become comfortable with. All right, so I'm going to start by giving you some tips that you can utilize before you engage in discussion. So my biggest tip is to complete any required reading. So if you have to read something before you come to class, make sure you've read it in its entirety. Of course, that's not always possible. As students with outside lives, that you have to work, take care of family members, whatever it is. Sometimes we can't finish those readings, and that's okay. But if you can, try to complete it, because it's going to help you more confidently participate in class discussion. But if you can't complete the required reading, try to at least complete part of it and focus on what you find interesting in the reading, so that you can share when it comes to class discussion. So just think about key points that you find interesting if you can't finish all of the reading. Like I said, identify parts of the text that you're interested in and would be comfortable talking about. So if there's certain parts of the text that stand out to you, whether that be in the beginning, the end, or the middle of the text, take note of it and think about what you might want to say about that part of the text. It's easier when you feel more invested in whatever you're talking about. So be sure you're thinking about those things as you're reading. Take note of parts of the text where you agree or disagree with the author. So if there's something you feel passionately about and something that pops out to you when you're reading, underline it, right? Highlight it. Write a note in the margin telling yourself that, wow, this is a great point and something I want to share with the rest of the class. If you disagree, also take note of why you might disagree, so that you can share that with your classmates when you come to class. Again, mark up your textbook. So you should be highlighting, you should be underlining, you should be making notes in the margin. Doing this is going to make it easier for you when you come to class, because once you're in class and you have those notes in front of you, you're going to be able to more easily identify the things you'd like to talk about. So don't be afraid to mark up that textbook. Articulate any questions you have that come up while reading. So if there's a part of the reading that's confusing to you, take note of it so that you can ask it during class. You never know, that question that you ask might spark conversation, and maybe one of your classmates or your instructor can clarify that for you, which again will deepen your understanding of the text. Make sure you review your notes before lecture. This is especially important if you're reading the text in advance. So say you have class on Wednesday and you're reading it on Thursday night for a Monday discussion. You want to review your notes before you go into class on Monday. You might forget over the weekend whatever you reviewed, so reviewing your notes is going to be helpful for you, especially if you're trying to formulate what you'd like to bring up in class. Practice saying any points you like to make out loud. So practice always helps if you're feeling unsure or not confident about participating in class discussion. Try speaking it out loud by yourself so that you feel more confident when you go to share that with the class. Talk to your classmates about the text before class. So if you've formed friendships, or if you're close to anyone in the class, you can talk, or even if you're like standing outside of the classroom before the class starts, you can talk about the text with your classmates, and maybe having that casual discussion will help you feel more confident to bring it up in front of the rest of the class. And finally, ensure your physical needs are met before entering the classroom. So if the classroom runs cold, bring a sweater. If you tend to fall asleep and feel tired in class, bring coffee, tea, or snack. If you get fidgety or nervous, bring a stress ball or something else that might help you release nervous energy during class. Just make sure you're paying attention to what you need physically so that you feel more comfortable, and therefore you'll feel more inclined to participate because you're more comfortable physically. I do want to say that class discussion isn't about showing off how much you know. So it's about better understanding the reason and asking the reasoning behind, the text that you're reading, and asking any critical questions that you might have. So don't think about it as you have to be an expert. It should be you coming to class to better understand what you're learning. I know that was something for me personally. When I was in school, I always wanted to know the most, but that's not the point of it. The point is for you to learn and have a deeper understanding of what you're learning. And it's okay to be shy. Like anything, it's going to get easier with practice. All right, so here are some tips for during the discussion. So once you're in the classroom, try to speak in class early on in the semester, even if it's a simple point or question. This can help you build your confidence. So if you speak early on, you're establishing that norm for yourself that it's okay to speak, and you'll see that it's not so scary. However, if you wait for longer, say you don't say anything until mid-semester, it's going to be harder for you to speak because you don't have as much practice. So try to speak early on so that you can build that habit once you start in that class. Actively listen to your instructor and classmates. This will help you tailor your responses to be relevant to the conversation. So part of participating in classroom discussion is contributing to the current conversation that's going on. So that means you really need to listen to your classmates so that you're responding rather than just talking at them. Sometimes participating means something as simple as articulating back what your classmates have said and adding your own observations. So you can say something like, "You seem to be saying this. I like that, and it makes me think of this," right? So just thinking of a way to respond to your classmates so that you're contributing to the discussion rather than talking at your classmates. You also want to show that you're actively listening. So make sure your body language communicates that. Some things that you can do are look up from your device or your book when someone else is talking, trying to make eye contact with them, or at least looking in their direction to show that you're listening, and nodding your head. So if there's something you agree with, nodding your head, showing that you're actively listening, and participating in the conversation through your body language. Your goal should be to think in community with your classmates, not speak at them. So take note of what your classmates are saying and write down your thoughts while others are speaking. So that way, when it's finally your turn to talk, you'll have something to say because you have those notes there. And they're also in response to what your classmate is saying, rather than bringing up a new point or derailing the conversation. When you are confused, try framing your confusion as a question. So for example, you can say something like, "On this page, the author says that, says this. I'm a bit confused about what she's trying to say. What do you think she means here?" Remember that many times, like I said earlier, other students will have the same questions as you, but they're too shy to ask. So asking a question will probably be as helpful to you as it is to them. Be mindful of how much you're speaking. Try not to monopolize the time. So you don't want to speak too much where you're the only person speaking. You want to give space for others in the classroom to also participate. So just be mindful of how much you're speaking. But at the same time, try not to rush through your thoughts and words. So if you're nervous, take deep breaths and speak clearly, right? So you want to hit that sweet spot where you're not taking over the conversation, but you're also not trying to rush through your thoughts and just get your thing for the day out, right? You want to take your time and make sure you're articulating your thoughts as best as you can. Doing this will make it easier for someone to understand you so that they can also respond to you more thoughtfully. If you're on Zoom, be sure you're muted when you're not speaking. So this is a small but big thing. Sometimes you don't realize it, but there's ambient noise that might be distracting for the conversation. So just make sure you're muting yourself on Zoom when you're not speaking. Last tip, identify your instructor's preferred discussion style. So ask yourself, do they ask the class specific questions and guide the conversation more closely? Or do they prefer a more organic discussion style? Understanding the way your instructor prefers to run discussion will help you understand how to engage in the classroom discussion more effectively. So take note of that. Just be mindful of it the first few weeks that you're in the classroom so that you can get a better understanding of it. Okay, so after the discussion, there are a few things that you can do to solidify your learning, and that is to take note of the key of 2 or 3 key points that you took away from the discussion. So what are some things that you learned while you were in that discussion? What are some points that really stood out to you, either that you made or something that your instructor might have said or something that your classmates might have said? What key points stood out to you and what did you take away from the discussion? Based on the conversation, plan how you will review your course material for the next class discussion. So you can use what you learned in that class discussion and carry it on over to the next one. So be sure you're just taking notes of these things so that it'll help you recall the information when you come back to the classroom. If you're still having trouble confidently participating in class discussion, reach out to your instructor, send them an email, visit them in office hours, ask them how you might be able to more effectively participate, if they might have tips for you. Just make sure you're communicating with your instructor so they understand where you're at. This is especially important if you're getting points for classroom discussion. If classroom discussion is part of your grade and your participation in it, you should be sure that you're connecting with your instructor, letting them know your concerns, and asking them for advice so that you can more effectively participate. All right, so this brings us to our final activity, which is to create a discussion plan. So now that you've learned a few tips, I want you to create a discussion plan that will help you in your next classroom discussion. Consider the following questions in your response. So the first question, what is the topic of your next discussion? If you've already read the text for that discussion, consider summarizing your understanding of the text and identifying a few key points. Doing this is going to help you bring up these key points and also help you solidify your understanding of the text so that when you go to class, you're going to have a plan to speak, and it'll help you be more confident when you do speak. Another question is, how will you prepare for this specific discussion topic before class? So what are some things you might do before class that will help you prepare? Are you going to bring a sweater? Are you going to bring a stress ball? Are you going to write out your notes before you go to class? Are you going to try to speak to some of your classmates? So you can even go back in the workshop to see some of those tips and think about what you might implement in order to help you feel more confident when you come to participate in the next classroom discussion. And finally, what is one point or question you plan to share or ask during discussion? So this is one specific thing you'd like to say during the classroom discussion, or one specific question you want to ask, but you want to create at least one so that you have something to share when you go into the next discussion. So go ahead and pause here and continue once you've completed your plan. Okay, and finally, this brings us to the end of the workshop. I do have a page of resources here. So if you'd like to learn more about effective classroom discussion techniques, I got my information from the Writing Center at UNC Chapel Hill, the Academic Discussion Strategies worksheet, and the Class Discussion Strategies worksheet. The links for both of those are here, so feel free to go there if you'd like to learn a bit more about how to effectively participate in classroom discussion. Of course, if you need any help with any of your writing assignments, please feel free to stop by the Writing Support Center in C345. We're happy to help you with any writing assignments or writing questions you might have. Thank you, and we hope to see you at the next workshop.